All right, welcome back. So, next we have dun 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 death. Death or rebirth, transformation. Um, it is the nature of life that things die. So, the cards represent the forces around us, including destructive ones, beginnings and endings. So, where the Fool is about beginnings, death is about endings. Usually pictured as some kind of skeletal figure in a lot of cases. Grim Reaper with the scythe, with the staff of some kind, various figures. Kali on the goddess card. She's the Hindu goddess. She's got skulls around her waist there.
I like the death card for the steampunk one.
The steampunk one. Yeah, she's kind of a dark angel.
The white dress, though.
Yeah. With a white dress. So death is not about, not always, I should say, about literal death, but about the transformation, just like caterpillar to butterfly. Something dies and something is born. It's about release often, like how to let go of the transition, how to move through a transition time. Are you holding on too much? Confronting the unknown, passing a threshold, adversity, renewal, shedding what's not needed, letting go, grieving, making a break with the past or endings. Something also about the number 13, the unlucky 13, and it happens to be card number 13 on purpose, I believe, because of unlucky superstitions. And also that the 13th lunar month ends the year. So the year is made up of 13 lunar months. And so death at the end of the year, old Father Time is often pictured with the Sith also, and he's usually the end of the year, and the baby's the newborn of the new year. The next one is called Temperance. Some of the language in the cards comes from old words, like words that were virtues. So some of the words used to be other than what they are now. So temperance is one of those words that is hard for us to use now because it's not a word in our language now. But it's about patience. It's about time and patience and balancing things out, tempering the forces, like you temper a sword. You heat it and cool it and heat it and cool it. The cooling it is the tempering it. So you heat it and then cool it down. So if there was anger in the room, you temper your anger, even though we use the word temper to mean anger. Isn't that interesting? But usually pictured as a woman, she's pouring out usually from one cup into another, vessels to vessel. So it's kind of an alchemy arrangement. She's doing chemistry there. Often winged figure or angelic. There's a couple of different versions of that here. Notice she's also often standing with one foot on land and one foot in water. So she's bridging the gap of worlds between the land and water, making things balanced, pouring from one into the other until things are even. I think there's a saying, water seeks its own level. Water is that ever evening force. Water will cut through rock. Water will part around obstacles and find its way back again. So it's a good card to remind you of that, like when to yield and when to push forward. Recovery, self-care. It's also been called the art card. The Thoth deck actually does say art on it. Recovery, purification, filling up, cleansing, adaptation, diplomacy, moderation, regeneration, time passing, and integration. What's interesting, I noticed about the liquids, if you think about, if you have say I have all green in one cup and all clear in the other, once you mix it back and forth, you end up blending it. So I think this card comes up too about really there's so many things that are about polarities. This is sort of the opposite. It's about coming together and meeting of minds and balancing things out. So seeing the middle, seeing what works for everybody. On the other hand, trying things on for size, kind of finding the moderation or the moderate mix.
He's having a problem
Yeah.
with his battery.
Yeah. We good?
Volume.
Battery's good.
Volume just gave us a
So next we have the devil. The devil's a tricky one, but deserves to be present because in all things there's good and evil. In all religions, spiritual doctrines, stories, there's always antagonists. There's always forces that work against you, and there are deeply malevolent things in the world. What I like, the Witch's Tarot on the far right of the top has it labeled the Horned One, or the Horned God, and it's pictured much more benevolently with Pan above the sort of Adam and Eve naked in the woods. And we know where we get the Christian devil from and its influences that come from Pan. Pan, panic, pandemonium. But it took me a long time to really come to an understanding of how I feel, how I can explain what this card means to people in readings and to you guys to teach it. Temptation, but not from the word, not really in terms of sin, but in terms of that which leads you to forego better judgment.
right.
So, too much money, what do they say? Absolute power corrupts absolutely. Too much of anything is excessive or gluttonous or leads to problems.
Imbalance.
And feeling persuaded or compelled or manipulated. There's often a picture of, the devilish creature with chains that bind people to him in the card. Sometimes a man and a woman at his feet, or several. There's this nature of enslavement. And so, just like we all know about cults where there are cult followings, people who submit their will to others who want to follow, there are charismatic leaders who will take advantage of those people's resources and use it all up. So I feel like the devil represents this idea of, whose will are you serving and is it your own? So when it comes up, that's how I explain it to people so that they're not scared or, freak out about it. But basically, it's a warning to say, whose will are you serving and is it your own? Is this really the direction you're choosing, or are you being swayed or persuaded by somebody? Are you being manipulated? Are you putting your resources behind someone else's agenda? That's my best way of explaining. It also can represent, of course, our shadow side, our anger, our temper, things we want to deny in ourselves. Ignorance and deceptiveness. So the untruth, so lack of clarity. Often people who want to take advantage will cloud reality, fake news, and say things that try to distress people, try and make them uncertain, make them doubt. If they can make you doubt, you've already sort of succumbed to less power. And ignorance, I would say, is probably the worst thing, because then that leads to all kinds of horrible acts that mankind does to one another. Yeah. So where the hermit is pursuit of knowledge, the devil is sort of blind ignorance and wanting to stay that way, wanting to keep others trapped, subdued, and underneath their will. I put down also being a slave to one's fears. It can really be more about what you fear, than an actual person in your life or an actual tempter. It can be, your fears of what ifs, for sure. All right, the next one. So like I said, these cards, since the Hanged Man, right? Hanged Man, Death, Temperance was nice in the middle there, and then we get into the Devil and now the Tower. So we have some negative cards here, or distressing, I suppose, rather than the word negative. We have things that happen, ups and downs, certainly ups and downs in the cards. The Tower is destruction of a complete nature. Ashes, ruin, a wrecking ball through someone's life, the rug being pulled out from underneath them, usually kind of surprising, like you didn't see it coming, and like one brick falls and the whole thing just comes down. Sometimes like the idea of a house of cards, like it wasn't that strong in the first place and it was just ready to blow. Reconstruction needed, abandoning old ideas or structures, breaking that which does not bend. That's a good concept to keep in mind. That which does not give will break, even your own beliefs and your own adages that are old-fashioned or that are out of date for yourself need to break down before you can rebuild new pliable beliefs and thinking patterns. Liberation from imprisonment. If you think of the Tower as a prison, breaking free from it is a good thing. So I love the far right card from the Witch's Tarot. I tell people about that card. It's bursting with light. It's shining from within. There's no people falling off the top dying. There's no lightning and storms. It's just saying, enlightenment is filling this up and we need a new vessel.
Yeah.
Other cards, of course, they show lightning and eye in the sky. Eye of Horus in the sky, lightning, people falling, waves at the bottom. Sometimes it's interesting where you have kind of crushed from the fire above and the water below. So
Right.
like the elements themselves are rebelling, and sort of no safe harbor anywhere. You just have to start over. When that comes up, it is hard to interpret for people because it's a shock and it's not always pleasant, but they usually know. They're like, oh, okay. I was afraid of that.
Yeah.
But if they don't know, it's still, you look at cards around it to find context. Like today, I'm just going through each one of these, but it's hard to just say it always means that every time because it has nuances based on what's with it. It can be a warning of what's to come. It's not necessarily bound and determined to happen. It might be preventable. It might be a sign that says, that path is this and a different path is another card. Let's go on here. The Star comes out of the Tower. I feel like now we're kind of on the home stretch. So we got through our turbulence and our dark times and our distress, and the Hermit goes it alone, and then we have the Death card and we have the Tower card. And then what leads us out of destruction? What do we all need? We all need hope.
Guiding light.
We need a guiding light in the rubble. The smoke clears, and what do? We need something to follow.
Right.
We need like the wise man. Wise man had the star in the sky. We all have hope, inspiration, the thing, that which leads us forward out of the darkness, and we all need that. And so the cards will picture actual stars, starlight, shining stars, twinkles, dancing figures, women. There's a couple cards where she's pouring out, again, like Temperance. She's pouring out vessels onto land and sea or in the rivers. Sort of like rebirth and renewal, like dousing the flames and like the rain that washes down and calms everything again. And like that one voice in the chaos that just narrows the beam of focus and says, this way, this is the way to go. So the star is often pointing the direction and also more about from within. Hope renewed, because hope was crushed sometimes from just what came before it. A wish. I sometimes think of the star as what was left in Pandora's box, too. That idea that she unleashed all the demons, but kept hope trapped in the box. I feel like, that is there for all of us to draw on. We all have that in us. Inner peace, surrender. Again, it's another water card. The moon comes next. We have in order, we have the star, the moon, the sun. So our celestial bodies come in a row here. So the star, then the moon, then the sun. So the moon is the feminine, sort of like the high priestess. It's a similar card to that. It's about, again, visions, dreaming, the oracle, cycles, the tides, the swaying of the tides, the things that pull us, compel us. Sometimes there's a crab or a lobster kind of animal crawling out of the sea to represent the call of the tides. Also sometimes dogs or wolves, canine animals that respond to the moon are pictured. And also they were thought of, Anubis, the jackal, was thought of as at the gateway to the underworld or to the darkness. And the moon is, again, it's the idea of the unseen and like that veil that you could just get past it. There's this wisdom there. So little bit dangerous, a little bit untouchable. The moon is also about reflection. The moon, of course, is the sun's light being reflected. And so it's often about self-reflection, looking inward. If it comes up, it's saying, look to yourself sometimes. If you were looking outward for answers, what about within?
I was told once that the moon represents false light, because the sun is the true light. Looking at the moon
That the moon is
misguiding.
Interesting.
Yeah,
So
and I'm
the
not
sun being the true light and the moon being false light. I guess was that from a man? I'm just curious.
No, it was actually from a different tarot deck.
And maybe that's their opinion. It's it's an okay one.
I personally have always thought of the moon as a feminine.
I do too. I like the moon as feminine, and I don't like thinking the moon as lesser
Right.
light, like it doesn't have its own source.
That it doesn't have
It's
its own
true.
source. It
It's not a
reflects the
source.
light, but it isn't.
Celestially, it's not.
Yeah.
But in what it means in storytelling, people often are very inspired by the moon. They speak their true heart's confessions and souls up to the stars and to the moons in the dark of night. They reveal themselves, and I feel like it's a truth teller. So I don't really feel like it's a false
Yeah,
hood.
I never liked the thought that the moon may be
But
perceived as a negative.
you could also see dreams and illusions in there. And so is it that veil of like false perception versus real? I could see where if you're caught up in illusions or if you would want to test by day what you learned by night. In other words, if what you saw by the moon gave you this answer, you'd want to make sure that answer still held true during the full bright light of day. The rational examination held up too. Like you'd want to balance it, I think. So I think the moon is about that sort of watery nature that you can't grasp exactly, but like I said, we kind of reveal ourselves more fully sometimes by night.
My God, I always felt that it was more about the magic of, being of that reflection,
Right,
being so
right.
bright and illuminate, where it looks like it's illuminated from within.
Right,
But
right.
it's that illusion, that magic. That,
And we're all that. Like none of us
Yeah.
is the sun, right? So aren't we all reflective bodies, literally? So we reflect each other's light back.
Right.
So I think that's often good. And sometimes when they say when people are triggering you, things you loathe in others or you can't stand, you often do yourself. It's because we are all reflections. The idea of not taking things personally, everything that everyone else does is about them, not you. The moon sometimes can remind you that maybe, that we're all just reflections in each other's story, Who you all see as me is a very different me than I see as me, probably, and you all have a different version of me in your head. So what's the truth? It just realize that it's all
part of the truth.
it's all part of it, with all facets, like multi-sided, I think. So I like that idea too. The unknown, or what is not revealed. What is kept hidden. Again, the moon is that elusive light that doesn't always reveal. Like, again, we have phases of the moon. The dark moon, the new moon, you can't see everything. So the moon could relate to maybe what phase of the moon it's in. If it comes up and it's a new moon, it might be saying take time off from a certain thing because the moon is not in full light right now, stuff like that. Last two cards, we've got the sun and, not two, sorry, three. Sun, judgment, and the world. So the sun, so we go from the star to the moon to the sun. The sun is the radiant light, illumination, the crown chakra, the completion of things, the gold in alchemy, like you've achieved your goals. Often pictured as a child or innocence, child or children playing. Sometimes a child's on a horse, with sun usually in the sky, burst of light. It's usually the end of a process, some kind of ascension or completion or illumination process, and can show up to say have some more fun, get back to playfulness. We started at the Fool, and look where we're coming full circle to. We found, the hermit and all the knowledge of death and the middle and the sun and the moon. And so we kind of learn through the path of the tarot from the Fool through the Arcana. And then when we get here, it's almost full circle back to the Fool. We come to wise, but also ready to be innocent again, to be cleansed. That'd probably be a good word. To be fully ascended, cleansed, accepted, absolved. Like, the idea that we are all sinners and we all fell from heaven. There's things in life that we need cleansing from to feel renewed, and we go through processes to release and let go, and then we fill up with light to start our day, to start anew. Candles on a birthday cake, stuff like that. for our self year. Nirvana, ascension, discovery, solutions, things falling into place. Judgment, this is sort of the rapture, the judgment day, when all is done and the souls rise up from the earth. So sometimes the cards are angels trumpeting, people actually rising through the ground, angels in the air, triumphant, holy day kind of pictures. The modern interpretation of that is, now that we've traveled our journey, what are the consequences of the actions? What are the results? What will we be judged for now that we can't change it anymore? What is our conscience? Being held accountable, weighing in on a matter, freedom and release from our burdens and from expectations, overcoming shame, releasing others' perceptions, redemption, the rapture. Often kind of a card of angelic resurrection. If you're trying to reach any kind of spirits from the other side, if you're trying to reach for angelic kind of guidance, sometimes these cards show up. And sometimes it can represent being judged by others viewing you, or what is happening in a community setting of others, and how is, are you being judged fairly? Is something wrong happening that is out of balance? So it will come up sometimes for that. This is sort of the card about the end of days. And then the world is the idea of completion, perfection, everything in its place in the perfect order of things, sort of like the beginning of creation is going to be the same as the end of creation. It'll all be, the big void and silence and oneness with all. So we go full circle to the end. The world usually has a figure in it, sometimes surrounded by creatures, ribbons, sort of like a couple of them, they're sort of floating in the stars or in the galaxy. The world card on the fourth one on the top,
Mm-hmm.
has a figure, and he's surrounded by figures and symbols and things going around. I think they're the astrology symbols. The goddess card has Gaia, the earth goddess. The steampunk card has earth, air, fire, water going around the wheel. A couple of them have these 4 animals in them, notice. The lion, the eagle, the lady, and the bull.
Yeah.
Those are in the tarot in a couple of different places, and I haven't researched fully the symbolism of them. So I noticed they've occurred in a couple of places over and over, and noticed that I believe, I'm not sure if they have Christian meaning or deeper meaning besides that.
They're on a couple of the cards. at the
Yeah,
top.
exactly. That's why I'm saying, like, the world and the Thoth deck has it, and
So is the universe. In each corner.
Oh, yeah.
there it is, up there, yes. So those are on the Wheel of Fortune card too sometimes, and I think 1 or 2 others. So they show up in the cards, and I just don't know. They're in this one too. Notice? And this one. So there are quite a few. I'll have to look that up because I don't want to speak to something and just make something up. So I will figure that out. But oneness, completion, perfection, achievement. Nothing is lacking. So where the Fool starts out with empty space ready to be filled, the world is all space is filled and complete, like a puzzle piece, the last puzzle piece being placed. And I wrote here that all things in balance and some elements or zodiac animals are pictured. So that's all of the Arcana.
Cece.
I just happen to notice
Yeah.
that they all, with the exception of this one, that have the symbols, have this same type of symbol. It looks like it's a lion, a steer, a
Yeah.
bird. And
Yeah, it's an
person.
eagle, a lion, a bull, and she's either a fairy woman, I saw it referred to as, or I'm not sure if she's supposed to be Eve. I will have to look that up. Because I've seen those in a couple of other things, those animals.
On the
So they're not zodiac specific, they're something else.
On the Toth deck, or Thoth, or Thoth,
Yeah.
whatever the hell it's pronounced.
Thoth, yeah.
The face on that one is actually upside down, and it's a male. Looks like a male face
Yeah, I see that.
versus
Yeah.
being female in the other ones.
Right. So I'm not sure if it's like, are they supposed to represent the virtues like valor for the lion and strength or something? I'll see. Maybe can find that answer for you guys. But what?
The 4 houses of Thoth.
4 houses of Harry Potter, it's something. Could be the 4 elements in their representation, in a couple different ways. So,